You know, one of those things that comes up on a regular basis in this city but not being done is bluebonnets, where there's still really no development there that we have seen. And the other one is Cavendish Boulevard. And I think every time we talk, I know when we talk to Rick Lechner, we think, well, this has been on for 20 years. Then we find out it's been going on for 50 years. Well, there may be something actually going on. Now, the last time we had Montreal Mayor Valerie Plante on the show and asked about it, because we always ask about it, she said this.
We're doing Cavendish for sure.
And after she said that, I said, you're kidding, right? And she said, no. Well, guess what? DIDA BERKU, who's a city councilor in Cote-Saint-Luc, and we were talking about this a little while ago, got together with a couple of other mayors, so that's TMR and Saint Laurent, and at a city council meeting yesterday, finally, it would seem, managed to push the city forward on Cavendish. DIDA BERKU is on the line. DIDA, thanks for being here.
Hello?
Can you explain where exactly we are on this project? So you're at a council meeting last night. The city has said... Sorry?
Okay, so I just want to clarify. Yeah. I'm representing the city of Cote-Saint-Luc as deputy mayor, of course, and also as a councillor who's been pushing Cavendish for many, many years. So we drafted a resolution signed by the mayor of Cote-Saint-Luc, the mayor of Saint Laurent, not the mayor of the mayor of TMR, and supported by the mayor of Saint Laurent, because the city of Montreal was supposed to proceed with environmental studies this year. And in May, we found out that they were kind of, holding off, pulling the plug. So for the past 3 months, we've been pushing, and finally we pushed forward a resolution which they could not avoid. They had to vote for it, so we got a unanimous resolution, I guess, from the city of Montreal. And tomorrow, Mayor Brownstein is going to present it at the agglomeration, and there I presume it's also going to be unanimous, forcing basically the city of Montreal to proceed with the environmental studies. And what's odd is this is highly unusual. I mean, the city of Montreal put forth a schedule. On that schedule, they were supposed to do environmental studies. They weren't supposed to hold off, pause, pull the plug, or do any other, play games.
Okay.
And once we realized that was happening, we drafted this resolution, basically forcing their hand and forcing the council to put it back on track.
All right. I have a couple of questions here. Number one, you're forcing them to actually go through with the environmental study they said they would. That's number one. If this happens and there's a unanimous vote at agglomeration council tomorrow, and it's likely there obviously will be, what happens next? They say, yes, we'll go ahead, and does the money set aside for this then get spent? What happens next?
Oh, yes. There's plenty of money set aside for this. In fact, since 2015, there's been hundreds and millions of dollars set aside, which they just don't spend. So, yes, there's plenty of money set aside for it.
What? What do you... They're not spending it on... I'm just confused by that.
Well, there's been no study, so where is that money?
So the money just gets set aside, so it's just sitting there waiting to be spent on this specific...
Well, that was the second part of our resolution. The first one was proceed with the environmental studies, which is part of the operating budget. And for that, whatever the cost will be, we'll know in October when they give the contract. They've agreed finally to go ahead, and they will go to tender in October. And by January, they say they will get to give the contract. So it's be a few $100,000, maybe $1 million, but that's small change for the city of Montreal. At the same time, there is over $100 million that has been set aside for Cavendish in every budget since 2015. It's accumulated, and it hasn't been spent on Cavendish, and that's another part of the resolution which City of Montreal didn't agree to, but we're still pushing for. We want to know where that money went. We wanted accounting on, you keep putting money aside for Cavendish every year, 10 million, 15 million, 20 million, but they don't spend it. And the reason they do that is because it was part of the Hippodrome Agreement. It all goes back to the Hippodrome Agreement with the Quebec government. They were supposed to put the money aside, and they were supposed to put it in the budget since 2017 for sure. And as we know, that's already, 6-7 years ago.
Well, is the contention here, DIDA, maybe I'm a little ahead of myself, that if that money has been put aside and clearly hasn't been spent on the Cavendish Boulevard extension, it may have been spent somewhere else? Is that why you're asking for an accounting?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because, if they budget and they put it aside they put in the budget, and then maybe they transferred it to cover their deficits.
Right. But it's all coming across as kind of sketchy to me. What do you think is really going on here?
What's going on is they've stalled on the Hippodrome project. They were supposed to proceed, with the Hippodrome project by, developing it with due diligence. And as you know, they've transferred that dossier over to the Gallup committee. We're waiting to hear what they're going to come up with. And in early June, when we first brought this up, they said, it's going to be studied by Gallup. But that was a pretext. So now they backed off from that pretext, and they say, okay, we'll proceed with the environmental studies. So we're just pushing and pushing and pushing, and we're going to keep pushing. Okay,
well, the good news is the first push got you somewhere, it would seem, right? They are going to move forward.
Yes, it looks like it did, because in June they were saying, it's on hold, and now they finally agreed to proceed. So, yes. It did get us somewhere.
So when you say the city's going to go to tender in October, that means they're actually going to put a tender out for people to get involved in this project? I mean, is that what you believe?
Put a tender out for the environmental studies that are going to have to go to the BAP.
Got a little ahead of myself.
The BAP is the Bureau d'Audience. No, it's going to take a long time, but at least we're moving as opposed to being on pause, which was the situation we were in June, right? So now we're no longer there. Now we're proceeding because we got unanimous resolution. Like I said, it's highly unusual. I mean, once they put forward a schedule, they should follow their schedule. But now we're forcing them to do that.
Okay. All this to say, so I was a little ahead of myself. I thought putting to tender meant finally they're going to go ahead and say we need to dig up the roadway, whatever else. We're nowhere near that. Yeah. This is just to put to tender for an actual environmental assessment study.
Exactly.
So much
Are you losing faith, DIDA, that this might ever actually happen?
I've been at it for so long that I'm just going to keep on going.
Yeah. Well, good luck.
You know what's funny and what's odd is this, that with all their emphasis on the transferring the modes, modal transfer. We want to get people out of cars and onto their bikes and onto public transit. Cavendish Extension would be provide the greatest number of that modal transfer. When you can get to the metro in under 5 minutes, when you can get from Cote-Saint-Luc to Saint-Laurent by bike, it's less than 1 kilometer. We had 4,000 employees working at CAE, and the Bike to Work Committee came to the council and said, we want a bike to work, coming from LaSalle and Lachine and all these workers, they want a bike to work. This notion that the Cavendish is probably one of the most important projects that could really push forward public transit and active transit. This is something that has to be adopted by the administration. They're so fixated on other projects like, the Chameleon Hood, and et cetera, spending over $90 million, when in fact, all the effort should be on Cavendish because it would provide the greatest benefit for their own objectives.
DIDA, I'm only hoping that money you said that's been set aside all these years for Cavendish didn't end up going to that study to redo the mountain across Camellia Wood. Let's hope that's not the case.
We're going to keep you posted.
DIDA, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Keep up the good fight.
Thank you.
DIDA BERKU, Cote-St-Luc City Councilor. Get this done.
I loved her response. I'm like, are you not discouraged? She's like, no, I've been doing this for I'm not giving up now.